Hello, hello, hello. It is Aricia Bennett. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started because I'm super excited about tonight's Civic reporting info session with Alejandra and Isra. We're going to get into it. So again, my name is Aricia. I am Civic Bureau's Marketing and Communications Manager, and we are here to answer your questions about the Civic Reporting Fellowship, about your application, and anything else that you have to ask right now. And so we are going to introduce Alejandra and then Isra, and then we're going to get into some questions. Pretty simple, right? So I am going to give you the bio, sorry. So Alejandra is City Bureau's deputy editor. Previously, she was a senior investigative reporter at Better Government Association, where she exposed systemic failures in local government. And before that, she was a reporter at the Chicago Tribune. Her work has been recognized with local and national journalism awards. Welcome, Alejandra. Thank you so much for being here. And we also have Civic reporting fellow alum, Isra Rahman. Isra is a freelance journalist and reporter at the Invisible Institute. Since the fellowship, she has been interested in issues around development, community, and policing, and hopes to continue that work through various different mediums. Welcome, Isra. Yeah, do y'all have anything else y'all want to kind of introduce yourselves as?
That's pretty awesome. Thank you for that warm introduction.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to ask a few questions to you, Alejandra, and then Isra, I'm going to ask you about your experience in the fellowship and about like what work you've done since then. So Alejandra, can you give a quick overview of the fellowship itself?
Yes, and thank you so much for being here today on a Thursday afternoon. It's sunny outside, so it's really nice that you all chose to be here with us. The fellowship is an 11-week journalism program. We have currently 9 spots for reporters. You will be signing up to work 15 hours per week. And as part of those 15 hours, there will be 2 sessions in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m. on Mondays and on Wednesdays. So the sessions are essentially, think of them as like classroom sessions for 2 hours. And then the additional 11 hours are reporting hours that you will be working on in a team. Every team, we will have 3 teams, and every team will have 3 reporters and a team leader. We have a stipend for the fellowship, so we pay you to come to our training program. The stipend this year is $3,750. It is a journalism fellowship, so we spend most of our time working on reporting skills, including interviewing techniques, requesting public records using something really fun called the Freedom of Information Act, engaging with communities whose narratives have often been ignored. And we also think together about how to improve news and information ecosystems to reach Chicagoans in the West and the South sides.
It's really amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I know there are also like 2 tiers of fellowship. So there's like the team leader and then there's a reporter. Can you give a little bit about the differences of those roles within the fellowship?
Yes. And so we have 9 spots for reporters, and reporters do not need to have any kind of professional experience. An interest in journalism is awesome, but not required. The team leaders have professional journalism experience, and the reason why they have more experience is because they will help the people with less reporting experience kind of get a sense of what this whole thing we do that is journalism, right? A lot of what we do is research. It is actually a skill to be able to be a good researcher. And that's one of the things that we go into in our reporting. It's actually really intimidating to go up to people and ask them questions. And so we work on that as well. And the team leaders kind of are sort of your shepherds, if you will, helping you navigate those difficult situations and letting you get used to be a reporter.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what are some things that like fellows will walk away knowing after the fellowship has ended?
Yes, and so past fellows have really walked away with a big and a complete understanding of this city. This city is difficult and complicated to understand. There's a lot of history of politics, a lot of history of discrimination and racism, of bad policy decisions, honestly. And a lot of fellows have told us that they do get a really better understanding of the city. They form a community with the fellows. Again, there's 9 spots. That means that 9 of you will be able to meet each other and really get not only a sense of community, of being part of City Bureau, but also in community with each other. Lots of long-lasting friendships. A lot of fellows say that they have feel really inspired by the conversations in the fellowship, and they feel in alignment with their mission of why they thought about wanting to become journalists and wanting to be more or create an ethical and inclusive journalism community. And they really feel like the fellowship helped them get that alignment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alejandra, for that. I just want to welcome everyone who's viewing us on Facebook and also the new incomers to our Zoom session. Alejandra just gave us a brief overview of the fellowship, information about the different roles within the fellowship, and also what fellows will walk away with. And from after the fellowship has ended. And so I want to kind of segue to you, Isra. Hi. Welcome again. Can you share a little bit about your cycle and also like what project you worked on?
Yeah, so I was a fellow in the fall, so fall 2021, and I was part of the Invest Southwest team. So we basically started with just trying to understand Invest Southwest in Austin, and the community engagement process, as well as what community members thought of Invest Southwest, because there wasn't really that much public information about what people knew. There was a lot the city was saying, but there wasn't much really else. So I was trying to unravel that and also see like, where is Invest Southwest going? Because it's this huge project that's really confusing to understand, both as just like a resident in a neighborhood, but also as a journalist. So that was really cool to approach as a team, because it kind of felt like a project in school, except you're actually interested in it. And it's also like very relevant to the city. And yeah, we all just like started from scratch and figured out what we would want to know as residents of a neighborhood. And we went to Austin a bunch of times, talked to people. It was really cool to have assignments through City Bureau, but also just like be able to take our own initiative and see like what it was we wanted to figure out. And then from there, we kind of just like started realizing where the discrepancy was, and it led to a lot of really interesting conversations among the team as well. I published a story as a result of the fellowship, as well as somebody else. So that was really exciting, because publishing a story and working on it for like essentially a semester is not that easy, but it was great to have like support and funding to do that, which isn't really that common. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a teaser.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isra. Yeah, I read your story, Tackling Food Apartheid, and I loved it. It was amazing. It was so deep. It was so like, in terms of the research, it felt very much like well-researched and well-intended in terms of like the reporting. So thank you so much. When, as a fellow, especially during like the COVID-19 pandemic, like what were some challenging moments or just like challenges in general going through the fellowship? And what did you walk away from that experience? What did you take away with from that lived experience. Grammar today is hard, y'all. I am so sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, the fact that we're all here. Thank you for reading the piece. That means a lot. And gassing me up, that wasn't necessary, but I appreciate it. Yeah, what did I challenges? I feel like the biggest challenge was definitely the fact that once we started just like going to Austin and digging into Invest Southwest, it was like a rabbit hole. So you could just write and research endlessly and do a bunch of stories, but I mean everybody has like capacity limitations. So that was a challenge, which was just like figuring out how we wanted to steer our semester long time together. And what was relevant to know and what was just like maybe after the fellowship we can keep working on this if we're interested in it and want to pitch it. So that was definitely a big challenge. Also, a big challenge was we tried to file a FOIA request, and if I say so myself, it was definitely a beautiful FOIA request, but the city, being the city, didn't necessarily respond with what we needed. And because of the time that it takes to file a FOIA request, we didn't get to really dig into that. So that's something that maybe possibly I would want to do since the fellowship has ended. Yeah, really challenges that came were just like challenges that come normally when you're trying to do a story and like time, bureaucracy, but it was cool to learn about it through City Bureau and also like with the team. And I think, yeah, what I took away, it was really cool to get to explore the things that I was interested in. So I've been interested in like audio recording and different multimedia reports, just whether it's audio, visual, and finding different ways to tell stories. And so it was cool to learn about audio and also like have the resources to try it out. And also I think which was really unique was that City Bureau focuses on the values when it comes to journalism a lot before we focus on just like publishing a piece. So we spent so much time like thinking through what we want to do, not necessarily what we want to create, but just like how we want to approach community members in a non-extractive way, which I think was so essential. And that taught me a lot, but it was a challenge walking away because I think not many journalism spaces function like that. And a lot of places still want you to just like have an output and not necessarily like how you want to engage with people. So that's been a challenge to navigate because I think I have been indoctrinated with that like definitely value-centered approach, but I think it's also super important to slow down the way we produce journalism. So yeah, that's sorry for that rant, but that was what I took away.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of that. And it sounds like there was a sense of community within the fellowship that you gained as well. Can you talk a little bit about that, like that piece of like working with other reporters, being on the beat, and also like, what does it mean to be in community with other journalists and other reporters?
Yeah, I think it was personally really helpful. I'm not from a traditional journalism background. I mean, I tried or like I dabbled in journalism school when I was in college, but then I was like, no, I don't really want to do this for many reasons. But I'd spent some time in like a bunch of random journalism spaces post grad. But this was especially cool because it was like we were all in the same city, but also everybody was focused on journalism, not just for the sake of like careerist aspirations, but like we want to hold a light to power and like we all recognize the city is terrible and like hiding a bunch of things and how are we going to reveal that and also be in community with people. And so it was really cool to not just be in community with each other, but try to actually think about what we want to produce and who it would be useful to, not just like a bunch of reporters who would read it, but also like people in different neighborhoods. So that was kind of the approach we took to Invest Southwest. And like, it was very interesting to realize that like nobody knows what the hell is going on with the project, like what is going on with Invest Southwest, not just as like reporters, but people. And then being in community with other journalists, it was awesome to just have people to ask questions to. So like, how do you pitch? I'm struggling with an outline. I want to do this. What do you think of this idea? And like people were so keen on helping you out. And so it was great to just like be immersed in the Chicago journalism network almost, where everyone just like wants to help and also is like very focused on making sure that we are telling the right stories. Yeah, it made the editing process really good. I don't know, really helpful, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to segue back to Alejandra for a couple more questions. So Alejandra, can you kind of like share, like, you know, when you were a young journalist, what were some things that you wish you knew?
I'm listening to Isra speak, and I'm like, all the things it's just saying. I wish I knew those things when I was younger. It was actually really difficult there wasn't a place like City Bureau when I was coming up as a journalist. And so the idea of slowing down and engaging with the community was novel. I mean, I know that we talk about it a lot here, and we're so lucky to have spaces to be able to do that. But something like this would have been amazing. Oftentimes I was the only reporter who looked like me in many newsrooms, and that was difficult for many reasons. And, you know, I wish I knew that there were some narratives that are ignored and others that are elevated, right? Like that there's nuance in how we tell stories. And I don't think that journalism schools give you enough of that nuance for you to be able to catch it and be able to actually, you know, have a knowledgeable discussion about why something that you might be feeling is not really right. You know, narratives are not simple, they're complicated. And I hope that the fellows here this year, and as they've done in previous years, will be able to really think through some of those narratives and why some voices are elevated and others are not.
Yes, thank you so much. I actually went to journalism school, and then I was like, oh, this is a lot of power. It's just like the power to tell someone's story and also not be given like the support from a professor or whatever to know how to tell the most accurate depiction of someone's story is hard. So I give y'all props. So Alejandra, like, what is City Bureau doing differently with the fellowship this year than it did in past years?
Great question. So we are very lucky this year because we have 2 in-house reporters. If you were here earlier, you heard us talk about the team leader. Back in the day, City Bureau, I laugh because City Bureau is only 6 years old. But in previous cycles, we had to recruit team leaders and also recruit reporters at the same time. But we're very lucky that this year we have 2 reporters in-house who are currently getting ready to preparing themselves for the fellowship. They're doing research, they're reporting our stories, we're workshopping things that we may want to incorporate into our classroom and into their own teams, so that we're really, really ready for you when you come here to be with us for 11 weeks. It sounds maybe like a long time, 11 weeks, but it goes by really quickly. So we want to make the most of our time with you here. We are also going to you're going to prepare to read a lot. I always tell people that the first step of reporting is reading. You have to read a lot in order to be able to report. And we're going to be reading the great journalism of Nicole Hannah-Jones, of Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's just a lot of amazing journalism out there. And I think sometimes it gets lost in the conversation about the media. And we're also going to make a lot of a space for introspection and journaling. And that idea of like the power of telling a story, we'll be doing some exercises together to kind of learn how to do that and how to do it well.
That is so exciting. I am so excited. Are there like multimedia like elements that fellows are able to tap into this year, or is that something that y'all are holding off until next year?
We're thinking through it. I mean, I'll be honest with you to say that my background is not in multimedia. Although when I was a very young reporter, I did took a couple classes of something called Flash. You all probably don't remember what that is, but it was this program that was like all the way back in the day, and like some reporters who knew how to do it were all about it, and immediately died because it was essentially video before there was the capacity to do video. So you all know it today as video. But most of my training has been in traditional journalism, written in the written world, and that's what we'll focus this first fellowship under my belt. And then after that, I think we'll continue to think through ways in which we can use or provide information in different ways. One of the things that we're really thinking about is how people are consuming information these days. So the fellows will be thinking together about journalism, about what it means to provide information, what kind of information we're providing, and where. I mean, maybe the written world is dead and we all just want to watch videos, and we need to be able to think about that as journalists.
Awesome. Yes. This is exciting. I wish I was a fellow. Can I be a fellow?
You can come hang with us anytime.
Awesome. I just want to say welcome to everyone who's been coming in, who's viewing us on Facebook. I am Aricia Bennett, City Bureau's marketing and what am I? Communications manager. Sitting here chopping it up with Alejandra and Isra about this upcoming 2022 summer cycle for the Civic Reporting Fellowship. So we are going to open it up to questions. How do y'all feel about that? Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready for the questions? Okay. Anyway, too corny. All right. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to ask folks to think of some questions to ask Alejandra and Isra. We're going to take 3 minutes. And please put them in the chat, or you can come off mute when you feel like it and ask them yourself. So let's break, and then we'll come back at 6:25. Welcome back, y'all. Okay,
Wonderful, I'm ready for music, if I say so myself.
I love that. That film is so good. Anyway, so we're back and we are ready for some questions. So, yeah, if you can unmute, say your name, your pronouns, and go for it. Also, how are you feeling today? Just to ground the space.
I see Malik is unmuted, but I'm not sure if they're muted to ask a question or if that's just, I can just go. I'm Valentina. I use whatever pronouns, they, them, she, her. And I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Yeah, day by day. And was there anything else? Should I just ask the question? No, okay. My first question was, what is the main thing that you're looking from the applicants?
That is a great question. Thank you, Valentina, for being here. Well, so we are obviously looking at your entire application, that you have completed all of the questions in the application and you have put some thought into them. We're specifically looking at your story ideas. We kind of want to get a sense of how your mind works and what you're thinking might be an idea. Specifically looking for people who have a connection to the city's south and west side, or have spent time in the south and the west side of the city. As you know, the city of Chicago is as a segregated city, most of the cities, white residents live in the north side, and most of the city's Black and Hispanic residents live in the south and the west sides of the city. So sort of an understanding of that is helpful as well. But yeah, putting a close look at the pitches is something that we look at, and I'm gonna actually drop in the chat if it's helpful. This is something that was written by Bettina, who is the founder of City Bureau, and our tips on how to apply for City Bureau's job applications or any place where we ask for pitches, as in the fellowship. And she was very thorough, so I really suggest you read it.
Awesome, thank you so much. I have other questions, but I don't know if anyone else wants to go first.
I'd say ask all your questions that you want, and then we can go to the next person, and hopefully, yeah, folks will have more time to like think through their questions. Thank you.
Alrighty. I was wondering too a little bit more about like the multimedia aspect, because I do photography and I do like film video. So I was wondering like the different ways that we might be able to include those.
That's a good question. And so the way we're structured right now, and it sort of depends on like the amount of previous reporting experience that you've had in the past. So the way we're structuring right now is that the first, essentially trying to break out the fellowship into like weeks of 3. So the first 3 weeks, you'll be really learning like reporting basics and we're doing a lot of work to understand like the topic that we're covering. So we are covering 2 main topics. One of them is labor. It's essentially, the name of the beat is Jobs in the Economy of Survival. And Sarah Conway, who's one of our in-house reporters, she's been looking into what the world looks like post-pandemic for workers, especially for workers of the south and west sides of the city, right? Like we know that a lot of workers who have the means and the opportunity to quit their jobs have quit, but what has happened to the other workers who can't quit their jobs? And then the other topic that we are writing about is development and segregation. The city has a number of development projects that are in the works right now. There also has been, for more than a decade now, promises of having places, grocery stores really in communities that haven't had them before. And we continue to look at that story, which is something that Isra kind of wrote about when she was doing her fellowship, or reported on during her fellowship. So those are complicated topics. They're not easy. And so the first couple of weeks, we really want you to get a sense of what that means to do that research and have that knowledge to be able to relate it to people. One of my really good journalism friends calls herself a translator. She doesn't translate for anyone really. She's translating big complicated issues into like things that most people can relate to, right? Like a lot of economic theory, or the way professors might speak about the economy. It's not in a way that is accessible to people who are actually working and living it today. And so within that framework, there may be an opportunity later on in the fellowship for us to experiment a little bit with some of the skills that you're bringing into the fellowship. Arisha actually does video documentary, so we have some skills in-house. Sorry, they have some skills in-house. And so it is, yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, thanks.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Young Jr. They, them. I'm appearing to, I've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, specifically with my camera, my video. It's kind of disappointing, but really, really happy to be here. And I guess I just wanted to just like come on and first of all, like, thank y'all for this like opportunity, but also I wanted to specifically, I guess, like touch on one of your points that you made about the idea of accessibility and bringing sort of these like topics of like specifically like workers sort of like empowerment in the workplace And even specifically, I read one article that called it was moving at the pace of healing or whatever, and I really really liked that. That was at the magazine, and I guess so like I don't know. I guess like in terms of sort of accessibility to sort of like these deep political topics or whatever. I guess what hmm, I guess like what have y'all find are some of the best ways to sort of engage with these things that like are very like dense political topics like the state of the economy or whatever like that, and how have y'all seen a way to sort of like make that more accessible?
Thank you for that question, Brian. I mean, I think we have like a reporter in-house, Sarah Conway, who's like a really great engagement reporter. She does a lot of her work is not only thinking through like the stories that we're telling, but also like how she communicates with people as she's telling the story, right? Like oftentimes the reporter is the person who's like, you're interviewing so many people who are often not talking with each other, and you're sort of kind of bringing the information one person at a time. And you know what, I talked to so and so and they told me this. What are you seeing? So there's some kind of one-on-one conversations that are happening because of the kind of work that we do. I think that, we have another program called Documenters, which is a little bit outside of the scope of the fellowship, but it's part of City Bureau's work. And in that, and Documenters go to public meetings, which are a lot of the, I don't know if you've ever gone to a public meeting, but they're really long and they're really inaccessible to people, the language that they use, how the meetings are run, who speaks when. And they are trained, documenters train them to understand how to go to the meeting, how to get the agendas, how to get all the documents needed, and then sort of come back and summarize those notes for others to read. I have been thinking lots about other ways in which we can do this work. It actually, it takes a certain amount of time in understanding a particular topic for you to be able to digest it and say it back to someone else, right? Like when someone gives me think about it, like if someone is giving you a new idea, you sort of like the first thing that you can do is probably say the same thing that someone told you in the same way. If you get more understanding, you might be able to explain it your own way. If you're an expert in the topic, you can just riff, right? Like you can just tell them what's up, exactly how you know it. And like you might not be able to do that initially. And so I do think a lot about how we can tell people very complicated stories, but also continue to have that nuance that is necessary to be able to make sure that we're taking into account everyone's point of view and we're not minimizing one over another. Sorry, that was a long rambling answer, but I do think about the same thing that you're thinking about. Maybe Isra, you have any thoughts from your reporting experience?
I think that's a really good question. I don't necessarily know if I could speak for City Bureau, but I think I always try to be as hyperlocal as I can in the work that I do, just because I think there's so much nuance. So it's always helpful to start like with the neighborhood or with, I mean, like the city is huge. So like, for example, Invest Southwest is like a huge investment plan. And we realized quickly that we'd have to zero in on a neighborhood, just because writing about an entire investment plan, while you can do it on a citywide level, I feel like you'll miss a lot of the nuance that comes from like neighborhood to neighborhood conversations. And so through that, a lot of bigger issues came up, whether it's the impact of private investment in neighborhoods, whether that's good or bad, gentrification, community engagement processes by city officials, food access was like what I focused on, and that's not necessarily what I started the project with. So I guess like sometimes it's just helpful to talk to people and figure out like what what the immediate concern is of people in the neighborhood, and then like the story starts unraveling itself. I don't know if that really answers the question. That's just kind of how we approached it, because I think it can be really confusing to be like, I want to talk about gentrification in the city of Chicago. Like, that's a huge issue. You can talk about it on the south side, north side, west side. Like, it looks different and it also looks the same. So it's helpful to really continue to specify it.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I guess like my second question would be in relation to yeah, just like what sort of like what sort of historical project sort of informs the work of the city bureau? Because I love the idea of like community engagement and trying to create a more ethical, democratic form of journalism. But I'm wondering about the historical comps because I don't know, that's very fascinating to me. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said the historical, just the history of City Bureau?
No. I guess like what inspires City Bureau, like another like journalism project or whatever that inspired the City Bureau.
I mean, I think City Bureau has inspired tons of journalism organizations. City Bureau started 6 years ago now. We're sixth graded, I guess, first graded now, and I think the founders really believe that that the work or the vision that they had about journalism wasn't really aligning with the careers that they had in journalism, and they wanted to create a more collaborative and also more cohesive environment. So it started with honestly, like the three founders just kind of meeting, and with four founders actually meeting and trying to figure out different ways of doing journalism. And one of the first things that they came up with was public newsroom, and this idea of us coming together and having conversations about issues that are really complicated, right? And it kind of grew from there. And our mission has grown over time, and we've, as the organization has gotten bigger, former fellows have gone on to form their own nonprofit journalism organizations, sort of based on the same ideas that they learned in City Bureau. So Injustice Watch is actually Injustice Watch might not be, maybe it came later, but the deputy or the what is his title? One of the editors at Injustice Watch came through City Bureau's fellowship program. There's Cicero Independiente, the founder of Cicero Independiente was a former fellow as well. There is a reporter now in a tiny newsroom in Harvey, which is in the south suburbs, who also came through the fellowship, and they decided that they wanted to bring that model to Harvey, and Harvey needed this kind of local journalism focused on community. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
Yeah.
That does. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Do we have any more questions from folks? You can also drop them in the chat if you don't want to be on camera or talk.
Sky, I see you coming on camera, and did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm wondering how many people are usually in one cohort, and then are there ways? What ways does City Bureau create for the cohort of fellows to stay connected both throughout the 11 weeks and then afterwards?
Those are great questions. Okay, let me go through them. So we have 9 spots for 9 reporters, and the reporters are divided into teams of 3. So teams of 3 each. Check my math. So the cohort will be 9 fellows and then the 3 team leaders. So it's 12 people in total. We have an alumni network that is ever growing, and you will be part of that network. Essentially, we have our Slack channel that is pretty active, where people kind of post information about jobs and opportunities, and sometimes the things that they're doing in their own lives and careers. There's also a email listserv where we also send out information about opportunities and kind of ways to stay connected. We have been thinking lots about how to continue to engage with the alumni network, and maybe thinking about ways in which we can bring all of us together, maybe once a year, maybe a couple of times a year. It has been, it's something that the organization really wanted to do, but then the pandemic hit and everything kind of went into a standstill. But we're thinking about coming back. In fact, I should have mentioned that earlier. We're actually meeting in person this time. This is the first time in 2 years that the fellowship will be an in-person fellowship for the evening sessions. It is optional for the 11 hours that you work outside of the evening sessions. But as long as we can keep each other safe, we'll be live in the same room, which is honestly like one of the most amazing things I've heard all year. Did I answer all your questions?
You did. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And your math was correct.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone and everyone in your questions. Isra, I do have a question around just like your writing, like in terms of the fellowship. How did it strengthen or refine your writing as a reporter, if at all? I'm curious, asking for a friend.
Oh goodness. It definitely strengthened it. I think just as a early career young journalist, however you want to frame it, finishing a story can be really stressful, but I think with the support of just like having my team lead, who was also an editor, and then Bettina was an editor, and then I also had an editor at Southside Weekly when it started getting to the writing phase. There was just like so much support with writing the piece that I felt really confident in it. And so that definitely helped me a lot. One, finish the piece, because I mean, a lot of people know you can have a pitch and it'll go nowhere. But actually getting it through that process was awesome. Honestly, the really technical things like writing a headline, writing a nut graph, like all these super journalism school things, I didn't really have a super tight grasp on. So the fellowship helped with just practicing that and learning, because it's definitely something you can learn. I think it's super easy to pick up on. I think just like practice really has helped me. And so the fellowship allowed for that. And I hope to keep writing and hopefully have like equally as amazing editors. Yeah.
Awesome. You got it. So Valentina asked, is there any immigration status limitations to participating in this fellowship? I'm on OPT.
I'm not sure what OPT is, but do you want to email me that question and I'll make sure I'll follow up with you? And the email is, sure. It's just Alejandra, my first name, at citybureau.org.
Yeah, OPT is just an extension of the student visa.
I don't know, but I will follow up with you. If you send me an email, I'll definitely will follow up with you. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Vishal, you have a question? Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you. First of all, very insightful session. Thank you so much. My question was the same, because right now I'm on CPT, I'm still in grad school, and I wanted to know about the OPT process. So I'll also send an email.
Great. I think you say you'll send me an email too. Go ahead. Yes, Alejandra.
Yeah, I'll send you an email also about the CPT and OPT. Yeah, because if it's not acceptable, then I don't think international students can apply. So yeah,
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Any other questions? I'm thinking that it may be time to begin closing the space. Anything else that I may have overlooked, Alejandra, Isra, about the fellowship? Deadline is May 1st. Get your applications in, call on your friends, okay? Have a little brainstorming session. That's how you know who your real people are. They'll let you know if something not sounding right. It's gonna be okay. So yes, thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your support and your questions. Brian, you have a question about the mentorship weekends. Can you say more about that?
No specific question. I just wanted to, I guess, just like ask in general about what are sort of the expectations, because I know it's optional, but I also wanted to just like, get a general feel of the sort of mentorship that we would do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brian. And we actually are changing the language from mentorship to collaboration because as part of our program, we are partnering with YOLO Cali. If you don't know about them, it's a program in the west side of the city that helps high school journalism students create their own radio programs, and it's really awesome. And so they do a lot of work in ensuring that the journalism students have their own ability to not only pick the stories that they want to work on, but also that they feel confident enough to be able to do it. So the word mentorship, they sort of implies that we're there to teach them, when a lot of the times they are actually there to teach us to be more like themselves. And so it's a collaboration with YOLO Cali, and they do have a lot of radio journalism experience, and we kind of collaborate on our experience, and they share their experience with us.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. If y'all have any other questions, please email Alejandra at alejandra@citybureau.org. And yeah, thank you all for being here. We're going to close out. Peace. Bye. Peace. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.